This session is called Common Pitfalls in Government Contracting. So we talked about like the successful things that people have done in government contracting. And we're not here to expose anyone and try to put you down for doing something because you probably just didn't know. But we're talking about from the educational standpoint, but also from the practical in terms of boots on the ground in terms of what you're doing. So these folks here are just going to share a little bit of their insights because they've been at this for a while and they can share some valuable insights and knowledge for you. So let's start with this side of the room, Mr. Vicari. So can you tell us from your experience, what is the most recurrent thing that you've seen that folks have done in terms of making mistakes when you're trying to do government contract?
Well, I think that, yeah, good question, Ryan. I think that one of the mistakes that I see within the SBDC is not doing all the diligence or to be prepared. Somebody has a really good idea for a product or service. They do it well. They've been doing it for a period of time. But the realities of funding still apply to those in government contracting, and the requirements for a good business model and a good business plan don't go away. And that hard work still has to be done. The litmus test of analysis in government contracting is higher. And government will not award contract to someone that hasn't done their homework. And so we cannot ignore all of the components, everything from historical tax compliance to a business model to all of the things that are required to conduct a business properly. So we know in the SBDC what things can fall off the table, and we're there to be able to help guide you and put it back on or to align things properly prior to government contracting. So that's at the beginning. And then along the way, good record keeping and good control of the up and downstream channels of distribution is important, and to be able to know and have a relationship with those contacts and have maybe letters of intent and other things that are important on the finance side are also important things to keep together when you're going for government contracting to make the package complete.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so now we're going to talk to Jeff, who is the one that's advocating for you folks, and just trying to hear from the feedback that you get from the folks that you speak with in terms of why can't folks get these government contracts. So what are the common things that you find that people are speaking about?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So one of the things I think there's a misconception about is once you get your certification that you're a veteran-owned business or a disabled veteran-owned business, that the contracts are just going to rain down on you and you have all these opportunities. That's not the case. So having that certification allows you to play in the game. You still have to play. You still have to bring your A game and play to win. But just because you have a certification doesn't mean you're going to get contracts. So you still have to come to these events and meet with prime vendors like Skanska. That's really critical to do because the other thing is to think that you're going to come out and become a prime vendor your first go around. That's not going to happen either, right? So the best way forward is to come in as a tier 2, tier 3 subcontractor, establish a good relationship with a prime vendor, show them how good your work is, and then build from there. And you'll get more and more business.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Paula, you're with the GSA, and I'm sure you've worked with hundreds of contractors, some more successful than others. So what are some of the common things that you've noticed in terms of folks that the pitfalls that they've experienced during government contract?
So sometimes it's as easy as just showing up. Contractors, you'll be very surprised. Small business owners, I know that you have a lot on your plate, but you have to carve out the opportunity to show up to events that your customers are having for your benefit. So for example, we did a site visit up at Picatinny Arsenal. It was posted out for 30 days and maybe 5 companies showed up. You're really losing an opportunity both to meet with the customers, to see what kind of work is being done at that facility when you don't show up. And it doesn't cost anything. I mean, I certainly know it costs your time, but it doesn't cost anything to attend that event. And if you are aware of these events, because they're often published on FBO, it'll say site visit or pre-solicitation notice with a conference. You really need to carve out the opportunity, and you need to be there. And make sure when you go there that you're listening. You know, don't do too much talking. You want to give the government customer the opportunity to tell you what they need.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So, Lynn, as a PTAC, and you provide a free service to veterans and just to anyone that's trying to do government contracting. I'm sure you've had your share of success stories, but you've had folks that, even though it's a free service, they've failed to really take advantage of that. Can you share with us some common pitfalls that you've experienced?
Yeah, sure. So, and right out of the gate, what we get is somebody who's really enthusiastic, and they show up and they meet with us for the first hour and a half, and we go through the process with them, and this is, you need to set this up, and you need to have a capability statement, and you should have a website. A website? I don't have a website. You want to do business with a guy, you need a website. Oh, okay. Well, or you get a situation where a couple comes in and he's got this business and he's decided that he's going to bring his wife in now because he can be a women-owned business, and how am I going to help him do that? And the point of that pitfall is not really understanding how it all works, and not understanding that there is a path and there is a foundation, and based on what you do, you need to get some tools in your shed before you can even go after an opportunity. And the other pitfall is mistaking that getting a new client in government is any different than getting a new client in the commercial world. People think, well, now I'm in the government, of course it's about, and I've heard this said many times today, it's about relationships. People are still people, they're still human. They buy from those they know and like and trust. And until you can develop that relationship and express to them that what you bring to the table is very valuable and better than the other guy or gal, not just because you're certified, but because you're going to bring value, that is how you're successful. And people, they forget that piece. They're successful in their commercial business and they don't expect, and I think part of it is because we're all a little afraid of the government. How can I call that guy on the phone? That's one of my lines to everybody. If there's a phone number listed next to a contracting officer's name and there's an email, you can call it and you can email it because it's there. You're not breaking any law. And sometimes they pick up their phone and you make a contact. Sometimes they do. And it's like sales. You keep throwing it, and eventually something sticks. And now you get it rolling. So don't misunderstand the difference between just being a hard working business person going out to sell your product. That's what you have to do.
So, Peter, did you repeat the question, or?
No, I heard it.
Okay, great.
So I would say, kind of playing on what everybody else says here, I always tell the small businesses, you get what you put into it. So if you get a certification, nobody's going to come knocking at your door saying, hey, you're an 8A, you're a hub zone, here's this $4 million contract. So to kind of narrow it down, I would say, do your homework, get your market research down, find out who's buying what you're selling, because you're not going to market to all 300-something agencies. That'd be a waste of your time and theirs. So find that out, then start to build those relationships, like they mentioned, with those contracting officers, contracting specialists, small business specialists, the people who are putting the contracts out and the people who are making sure that it's going to certain groups. And then once you do that, if you're a small business, I highly recommend that you get into one of our contracting certifications, because then you're only competing against other small businesses like an 8A, a hub zone, a woman-owned, service-disabled veterans. And then once you did your homework, you built your relationships, you have the certifications, it's still what you put into it. You have to go out there, email these people, call these people, have a capability statement. I always recommend that you have like a general one and maybe a tailored one. Once you've done your homework, you want to do business with GSA, read their mission statement. Put something in there that supports what they do, not just saying we're the best construction company. You need to substantiate things on why they should do business with you. And it goes along with having a website, having an email that's not a Yahoo email. They look at all little things like this. You know, if I'm going to award somebody $1 million contract, I want to make sure they're squared away and they're doing what they need to do, so that I feel comfortable with it. And
Van, okay, so you're on the private side, so
Right.
what do you look for? Is it the same or?
Yeah, it's pretty similar from a private contractor's perspective in terms of some of the pitfalls or some of the problems that we see is proper certification. So if you're certified if you're a GC, if you call yourself a GC and you go into the website to certify yourself, you're checking off every box there because you're a GC and you think you dabble in everything. My suggestion would be to zero in on your strong points. Focus in on those things, because once you get to the dance and you've indicated that you can do 7, 10, 12 different things, and we're looking at your certification thinking that you can do that many things, and you're really not that good at that portion of it, but you're a little better than that. From my perspective, focus in on what you're good at. Do that. And so that when we're looking at your certification to call you in to bid on certain work, we know that you're capable of doing those certain things, because we're going to vet that, okay? And you're going to get the opportunity to come to do work with us. And if you're not, as everyone has mentioned, if you're not prepared to dance at the party, there's no sense in being at the party, right? You got to be prepared to do the work. The pre-qualification process, I talked about that earlier. That's important. That you're going to go through a process. They're going to ask for certain information from you. My company is going to ask for certain information from you to make sure that you're pre-qualified to do certain things on that project. The first thing they're going to look at, though, is that certification. And if the certification is indicating one thing and then we go through the process and we see that it's something else, it's not going to prevent you from continuing the process, but that's a little check mark, right? That's a little check mark that they're looking at. Say, okay, this guy says he can do 100 different things. I talked to him. I stripped it down a little further, peeled that onion back a little further, and I saw that he wasn't capable of doing it. It won't prevent you from doing the work, but it kind of sets the tone. So when you go into the dance, be prepared. Be prepared. That's the biggest thing.
Ken, did you want to chime in on that?
Let me build on a little bit what Van just said. When I first started certifying businesses in New York, we veterans think we can do everything everywhere. And I had agencies come back and primes come back and say, there's no credibility here, okay? It's very, I'm just going to focus on what Van just said. Narrow down your NACE codes, your keywords to what you are really good at. You can always add, okay? With our certification, you can add NACE codes. All I have to do is make sure you're capable, and we can add them. But when you list 1,000 things, and you're a small business, and you say you can do 1,000 things, your credibility with the customer goes down. My best advice is to, whenever you're dealing with anybody, put yourself in their shoes and say, if I was hiring a business, what would I want to see? And think about, if I'm hiring this business to do work at my house, and this business is what I'm showing them, is this somebody that I'd want to do? So I spend a lot of time when I go out to the visits getting my businesses to narrow what they say they can do down to very precise things that they have a history of doing, or they have a military, experience in the military doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then creating everything, and then going to the Skanskas of the world and whatever, or the agencies, and saying, this is what we do. And once those companies and those agencies find out that you're capable of performing and really doing well, and you've built the relationship, it's very easy for you to then expand your offer. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So does anyone from the audience have any questions? No questions?
Yes, one quick follow-up. The events that you listed for the GSA, are they on your websites, all of them?
The events
For example, the one you give a pick a penny where nobody shows up?
they're on, that's funny, they're on FBO. So because they're not run by GSA, they would not be on the GSA website.
I didn't see that. I mean, I went to Washington for GSA, so I would have gone 30 minutes down the road.
Yeah, no, of course.
Think of all the attention you would have gotten.
The one event, that actual event was published on GSA eBuy. So when you become a GSA contractor and a customer, whether it's federal, state, or local, if they want to use GSA as the acquisition strategy, they'll probably use our e-tools. And if you're a GSA contractor, then you will be notified of that event. So oftentimes, sometimes they put it in both areas on the GSA e-tools, or they'll post it on FedBizOps.
Okay, I'll monitor those.
Any other question? You
So,
done?
so if you're a relatively new business, you suggest if we're still interested in getting to government contracts, should we still go through the process of trying to get certifications in order to qualify for the bids, or wait till we're established a year or so before we go start the certification process?
I would not show up if your company is not capable of doing the work that day. You know, I mean, it kind of goes in line with what we've been saying about if that's not your strongest point at that point in your business, then don't show up, because they expect customers to be capable. You're expressing an interest, so, and they take it very seriously because they're documenting the folks that are attending as part of their research, and that really determines a strategy. And for a procurement officer, if you show up and your company is not yet capable, that wouldn't be a good way to start the relationship.
Were you asking about like when should you get certifications?
Correct. At what stage?
You know, most certifications, depending on what they are, so if it's MWBE or MBE for the state, or if it's SD, most of them have some. You have to be in business 1 year, you have to be in business 2 years. What we recommend to our clients is, if you can get it at the phase that you're at in regard to certification, get it, because they all take time.
Right.
So you may not be able to use it yet, but if you're building and you're putting together your foundation, and for instance, if you're going for an MBE in New York State, you only have to be in business for a year. So maybe that's the first one you go after, because it's the one that you can do after 1 year, and kind of pace yourself, because they all do take time. They're very overwhelming, but also you'll find that a lot of them ask for the same documents again. So keep your documents really organized in folders in your computer, so you can go, oh, I need that one from that folder, and that will help you as well if you're going to go after a bunch of different.
Let me just clarify, the service disabled vet, in New York State, I can certify you as soon as you start your business.
Okay, so.
Okay, there's no waiting time. I told them I wouldn't do it if that wasn't the case. So they wrote the regulations to say you may have to be in business for the director to have enough information to certify. You may have to be in business for a year. But if you can show me that you've got the ability to perform, I can certify you within a month after you form the business. So you should do it right away, but I won't certify if you don't have the ability to perform. So.
Is there a maximum time?
Is there a what?
Like time frame? I was speaking with Mr. Mercado not too long ago, and he said to wait a little bit before I got one of the certifications, because sometimes there is a time frame, and he's not here, so I can't go back to the conversation. I'm just wondering.
Depends on, for instance, the WBE, perhaps in New York State, they want you to be in business a year. The New York State SDVOB, not necessary.
So,
VA, different. So each one has their own little eligibility and requirements. Sometimes you can get past that with a waiver if you come to the table with all the background. So for instance, somebody who's been in a business for 30 years and they were basically doing for another company what they're going to start their own company, they can show that they can actually do the work.
So expiration, because I hear
Expiration.
that you have certain amount of years, like for instance, 8A companies would have certain amount of years once they get certified, and then that expires, or no? Or,
Yes.
I'm just wondering.
Yes.
The SDVOB is a 5-year
Okay,
certification.
so that's what he was
MWBE is
talking about
3,
then.
The 8A is actually a 9-year commitment if you go through the whole process. So it all depends on the
So it's only
certification.
applicable for a few then, just like the 8A, not the, small minority owners. Just trying to understand, okay.
I got a comment for the 8A. We usually recommend, since it's a 9-year term, don't start learning how to do contracting after you get certified. Because then you're wasting your, I see people get contracts in their 4th or 5th year, and they just wasted half their time in the program. 'Cause
That's what
we
the other
do.
programs you can renew, but that one you can't.
No, you can't.
There was a
Business
question over here
development.
that we didn't get at, so go ahead, John.
Hi, thank you guys all for coming today, I got a lot out of this. I've been in business for about 2 years now, and I want to take it to the next level. That's why I came today to see, is there a place for me in government contracting? So, kind of what I've gathered is, first thing I gotta look is that FBO website. See if there's jobs that fit my business, and that I can actually do, and in my geographic area. If so, then target those vendors, meet with a PTAC representative, and get certified in whatever I can get certified in, and then take it from there. Is that right? Am I on the right path? Is there
Yes,
anything else I
so-
should be doing?
There's one other thing. It's not just federal opportunity, which is what you'll see on FBO. There could be a local municipality that, I don't know what your product is or your service is, but your county, your towns, your villages, your schools, those are all considered government, and they all have their own procurement policies. But that's a great way, particularly if you've got a service that you don't travel 5 hours for,
Right.
but you're trying to stay local and looking. That's a great way to start dipping your toe into the government procurement market on a local level, or even a state as a sub on a prime. So yes, there's lots of different sites, and your PTAC, they'll show you all the sites that you should be looking at. And also, they provide a free bid match service, so they'll actually build a profile with you. An opportunity will be pulled into your email box that is applicable to what you do, that you can look at.
That's what I was going to talk about real quickly. So they have My Bid Match, so any PTAC will do this for you. Based upon your specific geography and your NAICS codes or your specific description of what your business does, they will match you up with everything that's in the FBO website, everything that's in other federal websites, so you can take a look at exactly what's going on. And you have to be geographically specific, because if you say, hey, I'm in construction, send me whatever you have in construction, literally there'll be 12 pages of stuff that's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, all over the place. So you have to be geographically specific and be descriptive in what you do. And they will specifically send you stuff that relates to what your business does. It's a great,
Am I
great resource.
limited in the fact, right now, it's just me, my business is me. Is that a limiting factor?
What do you do? What's your business?
I do handyman, machinery repair, and assembly services.
Okay, so as long as you can, again, it sounds like more of a sub-opportunity. There's also, which is for another conversation, but your PTAC will definitely do this, there's also discretionary spending. There's some spending that doesn't ever go to bid. So maybe, for instance, with your municipality, your local villages who maybe need that work, there may be an opportunity for you to connect to them. If an agency, like a not-for-profit, for instance, if an agency gets funding from New York State or from federal agency, oftentimes those dollars come with a caveat that they want them to spend a certain amount of that money with an M, a W, an SDVOB, based on how they're setting their programs up. I'm seeing more and more set-asides for service-disabled veterans than I've seen in the 5 years that I've been doing this, right? It's especially on the state level, and that guy's really the guy.
That's the reason
He
why.
made it happen, but I think you're gonna see more and more of that. But again, your PTAC's gonna be able to really, or your SBDC as well. I mean, we also work really well together as far as where we best fit.
So we're going to take one more question before we go into the next round of questions. So we had one question from this gentleman here.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure who to direct it to, I think the SBDC and the federal folks. Generally speaking, I guess my impression of PTAC and GSA, a year to 2 years in business and like financials to show for it. So That's miles away from me, I'm just starting. But I'm under the impression, it's just a two-part question. One is that, I guess one question is I don't have any prerequisites to make, in order to work with SBDC regarding, I could be brand new and you could work with me.
Okay, yeah, so you're talking about just
Establishing a business. He
just
wants to establish
establish,
his business.
starting?
Like physically starting. I got it on paper, started 2 years ago, but I'm only practicing.
Okay, so this is what my point was going to be earlier, is that number one, when we're starting out, there's a lot of work to do prior to trying to go for procurement and for federal, state contracting. So what we do here at the SBDC is to make sure that you're ready. Like, I make referrals, we all work together, but we don't refer that which is not ready. So the key for you, for us, for them, is to make sure that the referrals are efficient at each step along the public service route. So what we're going to do is make sure that, number one, you've done a SWOT analysis within your research so that you know what your business plan should be. And so there are things you do well, there are things you cannot do. There are opportunities that you might not be able, the opportunities are there, but if you're not ready to go for them, that's not what you create the business plan for. You create a business plan and a cause of action for those opportunities that you can handle, that you can get paid for, that make sense within your capacity, and that you can fund and move forward incrementally such that you can maybe reinvest and go larger. What we've said is, until a couple of years, here in New Jersey, is we've got to have 2 years above break even in order to make success of any procurement activity. So why would we go that way until you're ready? Now, we can roll back prior to going, we think that there is an opportunity because we see an email about all this money spent in government contracting. So we're going to start a business to go do that thing. And I think what's clear by our panelists here is that's not the way to go, because that's not going to be successful. We don't start today and get a government job tomorrow as a prime. Not going to happen. So what we have to do is to develop that history, experience in the channel, both up and downstream, assure you could deliver on this job for this product at its use, and you have experience in it and a competency in it, then we move forward. So we look at a SWOT analysis, whether it's part of your business plan or not. In your mind, it's got to be done anyway. What are your strengths, weaknesses? Where are the opportunities? What are the threats? Because, if we have ghosts in the closet, we don't hide them at the planning stage. We develop a business to go through them. So let's look at more of a grassroots approach to procurement by working with your local SBDC. And then let's get through those problems at the organic level of a business plan and discussing one-on-one where you're going and why you want to get there and what you have that can help push you along. Those are the answers to many of these questions, are that diligence that's needed before the application for my fine colleagues here.
That relates to the second part of my two-part question. That's actually touching on it a bit. Different subject though. My service, like insurance and maybe the next code or whatever that's called, it's janitorial, but I'm not a janitor. I clean floors, but I'm not in the floor cleaning business. So I'm a safety person. I'm a slip and fall prevention specialist, and I'm saying that because, that saying you don't know what you don't know, from the little exposure I've had, I don't think there's a category that, people look at, an agency or a local big PSAG that procures too. They're not saying, hey, we need someone to help our floor become less slippery when it's wet. Like there is no such thing, to my knowledge, to ask for that.
That's risk management, though.
So what we're going to do is we're going to list out the scope of what you do, and as we said, what is it that you do best? We're not going to go into procurement arena doing a lot of different things. So there's going to be, what do you do best? That's what you develop the business model on. And then if other things come, fine, but let's look at what you can bid on. Am I somewhat online with
Absolutely.
what you feel is, when you see them, I'm not referring that which doesn't make sense. It's going to make sense first here in our house, and then we make that referral. That's the function of the SBDC. That's the opportunity that you have to take advantage of something that is of no cost in the public sector. So you're not paying for a consultant to bill hours to help you make that decision. We're going to be direct and fairly quick, and we're going to get to the point of what you want to build. That's going to determine what your success quotient is going to be going forward in procurement. Certainly you can do all of those things for a dispersed market, but it's not your identity. Either everywhere and nowhere at once, or we're doing something good so that we can develop a history to build upon in the procurement space. Because they're not going to want to look at a business model that's all over the place, even if you're profitable in each and every sector.
Yeah.
And they're all disconnected. Well, that's not where we're going to go, right?
All right, thank you.
Very well.
So, Peter, this question is for you. Right? So you had mentioned a lot of acronyms. So you mentioned the 8A, there was the hub zone and the MWBEs and all of that. So speaking to that aspect of it, what have been some common pitfalls that you've seen in those areas?
In those certification programs?
Yes.
Just kind of going back on what everybody else was saying, people sometimes focus on just getting a certification, and firms may know how to do their business, like let's say you're a plumber, you know how to be a plumber, but you don't know how to manage a business. You know, how they spoke on with accounting practices, someone to market your business, build the relationships. So I always feel that businesses should obviously know how to do whatever their business is, because that doesn't set you apart from anybody. But you also have to have those other business management aspects to be successful, I think.
And even if we're a one-person business, one of the things that we always have clients do within their business plan is to create an advisory board that may not be actual today, but it helps get the mindset that we want input from, if we're in some type of manufacturing, real estate, an accountant, an attorney, people in the industry. Are you active in a trade industry, or are you not known? And then if we're not known in a trade industry, and I want to see that in your business plan, but if you're not, how would we know that we wouldn't fall into a pothole that exists around us, and we are ignoring the information that is very easy to get, and it's our responsibility to know our industry. So I think that those are important aspects to that as well.
This question is for Van. So this section is titled Common Pitfalls in Government Contracting. So I'm sure you've had contractors that you've done repeat business with, and contractors that it was like a one-time and then you realized that that wasn't worth it for you. So can you give us some examples of when that happened for you in terms of those folks that failed?
Well, what I try to stay away from is when you say that one-time contractor that we don't want to work with. One of the things that we try to do, we're trying to be in this for the long haul, right? So we're not trying to necessarily look for that contract, that big, small, not big, small, but the SDVOB firm that can handle a large size project and just work with them and deal with them, and that's what, it's easier for us, and that's an easy thing, and we can do that. But if we're in it for the long haul, we have to be part of some of these programs that everyone is talking about in terms of developing smaller contractors to grow and get to the next level. You're talking about some of these firms are talking about, yeah, I'm new and I'm getting involved and I want to know what it takes to get to the next level. Take advantage of those resources that are available so that can help you grow. Because if we are really in this thing for the long haul to really see a result happen, you got to be in it for the long haul. So you got to invest some time in those smaller firms. One of the things that we try to do is invest in those smaller firms. We may not be able to work with them right away, but that doesn't mean we're looking to throw them away and not deal with them. We're looking to invest time and effort into some programs, working with the SBDCs and the PTACs to help develop and grow, because at the end of the day, that does help us, because now it's a bigger market that we can go to and get these firms to bid on our projects, because the Turners and the Bovises, all our competitors, are reaching for those same firms that we're reaching for. And if that pool is small, we're going to dry those firms out, and we're not going to have the ability to sustain going forward. So we are investing time into those smaller firms. So to your point, to your question, we don't look at it as a small firm that we would necessarily throw away. If they can't do work with us, it may not just may not be the time to do work with us right now. But we're going to try to, as best we can. We may not do it all the time, but we're going to try to invest some time and some effort into some programs that'll help you grow to get to that next level so that later on down the road you can do work with us. And we've seen some success stories there with that. So, I mean, my focus here is to learn about you firms. I may not work with you firms for the next 3-4 years, but don't lose my business card, okay? Because as you grow and develop, I will want to talk to you later, so.
Thank you. And so Paula, you mentioned, and I think this is going to be directed towards you as well, Lynn. So there's a lot of businesses that come through your door, and sometimes they may be good in one area, and they're weak in other areas. What are some things that they can do to kind of offset those weaknesses that they may have in those other areas?
Well, I would definitely say you first have to know what the weaknesses are.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's an assumption. I think Vince talked about it. You know, doing a SWOT analysis, if you haven't done an exercise like that, you should do that. Because it helps you kind of put in perspective what your business is. As far as addressing what your weaknesses are, I mean, I'm trying to think how would
So
elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah,
on
sure.
it.
So we have a lot of different businesses in this room, right? And someone may be good in one area, and another person may be good in another area.
Sure.
So if they come together and maybe, you know, for one particular project, is that something that is feasible to do, and how would you treat that?
Yes, so if you're within the GSA program, specifically the schedules program, that you would be able to do a teaming arrangement. So that is an opportunity where you are working maybe with someone outside of your category, but there's a happy marriage there, possibly. So you are going to customers actually with a total solution. So, you know, by doing a SWOT analysis, knowing what your weaknesses are, then you become aware of who is in that category so that you can reach out to them and maybe talk to them about doing a teaming arrangement. If you go to gsa.gov, on the right-hand side and you just put in teaming arrangement, it will go over the differences between a teaming arrangement and a subcontracting opportunity.
Can I elaborate on programs specifically for building-related services like construction, repair and alteration, all of that stuff that pertains to buildings? And we do allow for joint ventures in those areas. So, you know, that's another word for a teaming arrangement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we
Thanks
do
for-
allow for joint
Thank
ventures
you,
in
Jan.
those areas.
Did anyone else want to speak to that?
Well, this would be something even that John mentioned earlier. You know, he's a one-person shop. So if we did a SWOT analysis and a weakness is, what happens if John gets sick? And if they give you a contract and you're not able to do it, and we ask that question and the answer is, we're not going to get very far. What we're going to do is that we're going to develop a sustainability plan so that you have lined up those with experience equal to or greater than yours to take on that job in partnership as a strategic alliance to move forward, because you've got your 2 years. We were happy to see you start with us 2 years ago. So, you know, you're moving in the right direction, and as you mentioned, it's time to rethink that next step. And if procurement is your direction, then that type of contingency needs to be built in. And that would deal with what in a SWOT would be perceived as a weakness. The weaknesses are not things we hide, they're things we manage through.
So, Jeff, did you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just would say, well, just in general, so Ryan was just talking about pitfalls along the way. There are many areas where you can have pitfalls. And so it's always good to talk to somebody with a little bit more tenure, a little bit more experience, to understand what they went through. And I'll give you a perfect example. The Set Rock Group, they do unbelievable marketing, advertising, really, really cool stuff. They just had a bid come out that they, you know, an RFP come out. It was 75 pages long. They had to hire 3 other companies to help them answer that RFP. So you don't know what you don't know. So when you see a 75-page document, you have to answer every single question in all 75 pages. It's daunting, and it's a lot of hours, a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, tears. So if you can team up with somebody like he did, for example, he reached out to other companies that have done RFPs like that before. So it helped him along the way, and he's been very successful as a result of that. So there's always going to be pitfalls. You got to continue to learn.
Lynn, did you have anything?
No.
Okay, good. All right.
I got
So-
one.
Sure, go ahead.
Since this is a veteran, primarily veterans, the one thing, I know we do a VetCon event, I had 250 of my businesses there, but, you need to reach out to the other, go to our directory, reach out to Jeff's, the New Jersey, find the other veteran businesses that are in your field and reach out to them. What we're finding is the more we talk to each other and help each other and whatever, the more successful we're all being, okay? So, this SBDCs are fabulous, the PTACs are great, but there's really something that's really special for us vets, and that's talking to each other.
Sure. So, audience, do you have any questions at this point? Okay. So.
I have, on the very subject of what the panel is discussing, one thing that I found incredibly important as a young and senior business owner is partnership, but not only partnership, the right partnership. Because you'll meet people at these conferences that say, hey, let's work on this and that together, but when it comes time to deliver, you're spending more time trying to figure out what they're doing than building your own business. So the right partnership can incredibly grow what you're trying to do as a business owner, and the wrong one could actually hurt you and set you up for failure. So be very strategic when you select a partner, not only to grow your business, but to present to these agencies that are looking for qualified firms for a project. So if you just, that's my point. The right partnership is incredibly important to business growth.
One of the things that, I think it rolls back to scope, the scope of what you want to be identified with. And if your partner, or the one that you're considering to partner with, is doing something off-grid and something very different, then you're going to dilute your resources in the capacity that you're trying to build with the partnership. So I think that's an excellent point, and that's something that, we would look at, who you want to partner with and what was the reason. And we talked about doing a SWOT analysis for yourself, but if your partner hasn't done one, then how do you know that you're partnering with someone who has those same strengths? And you need to kind of match it up and see where the synergies are. And that would make sense to move forward, or else it doesn't make sense.
Awesome. So, in the interest of time, we're going to take a few more questions, and we're going to wrap this up. So, at this point, does anyone have any more questions before I go on to the next round? Sure, yes.
Mr. Thompson, I missed your talk earlier, and I know you mentioned something about how would a small company reach out to a prime contractor to introduce themselves and find out how we could help?
Attending events like this, going onto our website. When we have large mega projects, we have outreach and networking events specifically for those projects to kind of connect with us. If you're a really small firm and you're looking at this great big gigantic company and you're wondering whether or not you want to do work with us, maybe connecting with us directly might not be the right thing, but we also do meet and greet events where we have our prime contractors that we're working with directly. You can meet with them. That's a helpful way because I talked earlier in my presentation about pre-qualifying with us. As a second-tier subcontractor on the building side, which is the pre-qualifying side, you don't have to pre-qualify as a second-tier subcontractor. So there's another avenue to kind of connect with us, to do work with us. But I would suggest website, networking, grabbing a couple of Skanska business cards when you get to certain events, learning what events we go to, kind of, doing your homework in terms of what are the good events to go to kind of thing. So that's probably the best way.
Fantastic. So this is going to be the last question for the panel. So I know that these are a lot of small businesses here, and we may think of trying to do be a prime contractor to the agencies and to the private contractors. In your recommendation, would it be better for them to be a prime or to do subcontracting at this point? And some of the pitfalls that you've seen. Let's start at this side and work our way down the table.
The prime
Is it better to be a prime contractor as a small business or as a do subcontractor?
That's an excellent question because you can't get there from here if you don't go along the road.
Sure.
So I think what we will do in the small to mid sector is that you start as a prime. A subprime, I'm sorry, subprime. We start as a subprime. It's getting late. Yeah. We start as a subprime because getting paid, going through as we said, you've got to partner with people that have been through the process and those people that could help guide you. And going it alone the first time out would be a really rough road. You want to start with a partner that is aligned to your goals and objectives and that you're in the right space. You start as a subprime, and then you work your way up. So you have a track record. It's important to have a track record and to have a successful delivery record. So I think that's where what our advice model is for our clients in the center. And we see about 380 to 700 total clients a year, and a good number of them are interested in procurement, and they need to understand the reality of what they're moving forward in. Subprime first.
You remember the old adage, how to eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So as a prime, you're going after that elephant, you are not going to be successful. It's very rare. I'm not going to say you're not. It's very rare that you're going to be successful coming out of the gate, getting your freshly minted EIN number, and becoming a prime vendor. So you're much better off coming in as a subcontractor. Much, much better off. Because here's the deal. Every little job you do adds to that resume. So when you're ready to go for a prime and you're ready to pre-qualify, as Ben just said, you have a whole list of projects that you've already done underneath your belt. So always look for being a subcontractor. Tier 2, Tier 3 is the way to go.
So I would agree with the gentleman, and I would add to it, because GSA is a little unique. So, when you apply to have a GSA contract, it's not a sub or a prime situation, right? You are just obtaining that contract, and hopefully it is a vehicle to get you out into that federal or state and local marketplace. I wouldn't discourage you to say that you wouldn't be successful as a prime, because as Lynn mentioned, discretionary funding. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of funds where you're not going through that bidding process. If you're offering products at a small dollar amount, there's lots of purchase card holders in the federal government, even state and local, that can use their authority with discretionary funds and purchase from you. I'm not saying that those are large contracts, but know that that might be what you're starting with. Don't have this expectation that when you get that number that you will be awarded a prime contractor in the beginning, because it's most likely not going to happen. Just depends in what context you're talking about.
So I would put out there that, yes, it could be great to be a prime, but you can make a ton of money as just being a sub.
Right.
Primes are huge construction companies that are taking over big projects. Primes is the manufacturer that, makes 9 million widgets a day. Well, you may just provide the metal that goes into that. There are certainly lots of opportunities to be a prime, but the truth of the matter is, it's the subcontractors on all these big jobs that typically make up a huge portion, and it's where the diversification comes for opportunity. So if you are a janitorial company, your first contract may be as just the guy who cleans the 3 schools. But if you get on the Tappan Zee Bridge project in a sense of they need to have someone who's cleaning the porta potties or cleaning that could be an awesome contract for you. You're still a sub, maybe you're 2, maybe you're 3, but the other part of that is you don't necessarily have to put up so much of the money either out first. So being a prime is great, but particularly because where we're located is in a suburban area for us, and we do have some customers that are clients that are primes, but most of my clients that are real successful are doing subcontracting work. And so it's not like you'll never get it, but it's okay if you don't. You might be really happy what your subs total up to at the end of the year. So it's just another perspective of it.
I agree with what everybody has said here. Subcontracting is a great way to first get your foot in the door with the federal government. Most of the stuff I'll speak about is federal government because that's what we do. But it also depends where you're at. I mean, if you're a $30 million construction company, you're still small for the federal government. So you may be able to hit the gate running and win a prime contract. And also, if you're, let's say, in one of our programs, an 8A program, you have access now not only to the set-asides, but a direct sole source authority, which is for primes. You know, you get awarded that directly if it's under $4 million for services, under $7 million for manufacturing. So it really depends where you're at, but I do recommend to our businesses that we talk to, the best way to get your foot in the door is working as a sub with the government agencies and with large prime contractors, because they have the same goals to meet as the federal agencies. So they're looking to partner and do business with small businesses.
So for us, the short answer, quick answer, probably second tier is probably the easier way for me in terms of the direct contract. But to the gentleman's point earlier, second tier subcontracting, making sure that you're subcontracting with the right prime contractor, because what you're going to deal with is payment. Right? And you're not getting the payment directly from us. You're going to get it from that prime contractor. So you want to make sure you're sub-tiering with the right prime. The good news, at least on the New York State side, they have a software system that they use now, B2G now, where you have to go into the system. Our prime contractors have to go into the system. When we pay our primes, they have to check a box to say that they've been paid by us. But their subs also have to check the box to say that they've been paid by them. So that it's a keeping a watch on what's being put out there kind of thing. So there are some systems and things in place to kind of, you know, work to make that thing happen. But always, like you said earlier, you want to be a second tier subcontractor with the right prime. And we'll, you know, I'm always going to advocate for that second tier sub from my perspective. So if you're on our projects and you're not getting paid, you know, to reach out, make a phone call, look, I thought I got paid kind of thing. So, you know, there are people networking, knowing relationship. We talked about that today. That's major. Knowing the people that you're working with and developing relationships with them. Hey, Van, you know, I was on this project, I didn't get paid yet. What's going on? Knowing that sort of thing as well. But second tier, it's really on a case-by-case basis for us. Primes are great because you direct payment from us, but second tier probably one bite at a time, you know, doing it, you know, small steps, building up to get to the point where you want to get to.
All right, I need
Yeah,
I need to add, because a lot of our SDVOBs have been very successful with primes, and I'm just saying this because we have some unique. Like the MWBs and whatever, the discretionary limit is 200,000, and some of the authorities have even higher. So you can get projects that are 200,000, which is pretty substantial for a small business. But the SDVOB legislation also has, it's a gold program in New York, but we have a set-aside provision where agencies and authorities are now carving out specific pieces of contracts that only SDVOBs can bid on, okay? And so they're going to our list, they're finding who do we have that are capable SDVOBs. They're carving out sections of contracts that are, you know, and then they're restricting to SDVOBs, and you will be a prime, okay? But the dollar amount is usually, you know, smaller and so on and so forth. So I agree with everything they're saying, but there are specific instances. Now, you do not want to be a prime if you're afraid of paperwork. Okay, you know, you've got to know what you're doing paperwork wise, you know, and get the help from that if you're going to go the prime.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the conclusion of this panel, and just want to give a round of applause for everybody that was up there. Vince is going to say something.
So again, thanks for applause for the panel. A great group of people, great resources. So ask yourself one question in the public service space: where can we get all these fine speakers together in one room at no cost to you, with a gourmet lunch? What a fine, and a bus ride. Make sure to take advantage on the way out, because I know that parking was bad. But But again, I'm Vince Vicari. I'm the director of the SBDC here at Ramapo College. We're here at your service. We make the connections. And what we've heard are expert testimony from great folks. We don't compete, we collaborate, and we augment each other. So it's that we are not in competition with each other. And so there is many more people that need assistance than any one of us could all help at one time. So take advantage of what's out there so that we can leverage those resources for you. We're all at different steps along our growth cycle and at different places along the particular company's life cycle. So make sure that that you come in and take advantage of what's available to you. But there is a special guest star I would like to introduce to you. Have anyone have trouble hearing me in the back? Anywhere? Well, you know, as I grew up, I was able to take trumpet lessons, and I kind of credit a good diaphragm to that training when I was young. And there's someone here that was responsible for that. And Mrs. Vicari in the back is my mother, who had come. All of my family are in their 90s and still working. So thanks, Mom, for joining us here today. The room is open, and so I look forward to continuing the discussion in there. No one's running away. Our experts are here.
Okay. So before you go, again, we want to thank these folks. And just think of it like this, right? If you're a one-person business, these are potentially like your employees that you're not paying for their services. So these are resources that's available to you. So please take advantage of that. And we hope that your takeaway from this is that these are the folks that you want to be speaking with. You have folks that will solicit you all the time, that's asking you for money to pay for their services, but then you have these folks here that will do this for you gladly, free of charge, and you're going to get the right information from them every time. So with that being said, the last bit of business is that for the folks that stay behind, we have a bit of a surprise to you, a little gift for you. So we're doing a raffle. If you have your business cards, your business cards, we're raffling a virtual,
a digital video business card. So what we'll do is, Ray and I will work with you.
We will have a follow-up.
Thank you so much.
You will receive information for a follow-up. So, remain, no problem. Welcome to Ramapo College.
I'm here, so.